told you that if you want to solve the quadratic equation by completing the square, the coefficient of x squared must be a 1. So you've got 2x squared minus 7x plus 6 equal to 0. Right? So first thing, you make the coefficient of x squared a 1 by dividing each term by the coefficient of x squared. So you divide each term by 2. If you do that, you get a new equation, which will be x squared minus 7 over 2x plus 3 equal to 0. Okay, now it's simplified for me to use the method of completing the square. Right? Now if I want to complete the square, remember yesterday I told you must find half of the coefficient of x. So minus 7 over 2 divided by 2, this is the same as minus 7 over 2 times 1 over 2, you get minus 7 over 4. Okay? So half of the coefficient of x, or half of minus 7 over 2, is minus 7 over 4. So we take the positive 3 to the right, we get x squared minus 7 over 2x is equal to minus 3. Then we add the square of half of the coefficient of x. So we end up having x squared minus 7 over 2x plus minus 7 over 4 squared. Then we do the same on the right hand side. So that will be minus 3 plus minus 7 over 4 squared. Then this will become x squared minus 7 over 2x plus 49 over 16. This will give us minus 3 plus 49 over 16. Okay, now, you might ask yourself, how am I going to factorize that trinomial on the left? It's very simple. It's a perfect square trinomial. Okay? So open my bracket to have x. Since there is a minus here, to have a minus. Then you just write the value of half of the coefficient of x that we got, which is minus 7 over 4. So we must have minus 7 over 4 there. Okay? Once you get half the coefficient of x, that half of the coefficient of x will be part of your binomial factor, always. Is that clear to everybody? Okay. You see half of the coefficient of this x here. It's what? Minus 7 over 4. That number, minus 7 over 4, is going to be the second term of your binomial factor. Every time. Okay? So this will be equal to, now here, this is minus 48 over 16. I'll get 1 over 16. Okay? Minus 3 plus 49 over 16 will give you 1 over 16. Yes? What about this minus 3? That's fine. So then we say x minus 7 over 4 will be equal to plus or minus the square root of 1 over 16. Okay?
So is it not 1 over 6?
It's 1 over 16. Stand, but we have got a question. Huh? Hello? Are you okay there? Then we'll get x equal to 7 over 4 plus or minus the square root of 1 over 16. So that will give me 7 over 4 plus or minus 1 over 4. So we have two answers there. So I'll get 2, and the other one is going to be 6 over 4, that will be x equal to 3 over 2. So those are my two answers. Huh? Right? So my two answers are x equal to 2 and x equal to 3 over 2. Well, what this means is this trinomial it can be factorized. You can solve this quadratic equation by factorization as well. Okay? Because our answers are rational. The values of x are rational. Are you following? Huh? Are you okay? All right. So after getting to that point, then you're done. But be aware that this question can also be solved by factorization. How do I know that? Because the two solutions are rational numbers. That's why it can be solved by factorization. Okay. All right. Let me move on to number 12. That was your homework. Okay. So number 12, we have got x squared minus 10ax plus 16ax squared equal to 0. Remember, we are solving this by completing the square. Okay? So we follow the procedure. So firstly, we take the 16a a squared to the right hand side. So we get x squared minus 10ax is equal to minus 16a squared. Please be aware that the first term, the coefficient is the 1, so we can complete the square straight away. Then, what's the coefficient of x there? It's minus what? Is it minus 10 or is minus 10a? It's minus 10a. The coefficient of x here is minus 10a. Okay? This is the coefficient, minus 10a. So we need to find half of minus 10a will be what? Huh? It will be minus 5a. It's not minus 5, it's minus 5a. So this means you can write this as x squared minus 10ax plus minus 5a squared. This will be equal to minus 16a squared plus minus 5a squared. So this will give me x squared minus 10ax plus 25a squared. On the right hand side, if I simplify that, I'll get minus 16a squared plus 25a squared, which will give me positive 9a squared. So obviously, on the left-hand side, you don't have to stress about how to factorize it. Half of the coefficient of x is going to be the second term of the binomial factor. So this will be x minus 5a all squared is equal to 9a squared. Where is that sound coming from? Whatever you're doing, stop it. Okay, any question? Yes.
When you count the coefficient, you not have a. So when you get the sum, the third step.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, are you talking about half of the coefficient of x?
Yes.
Okay, let's go back to the basics. Okay, so minus 10a divided by 2. What's the answer? It's minus 5a. Right. You just divide the coefficient of a, which is minus 10 by 2. You get minus 5, then you multiply the result by a. So you get what? Minus 5. Okay. Is that clear to everybody? Yes. Right. So, from here, we go to the next page. Just take square roots on both sides. So you got x minus 5a squared is equal to plus or minus the square root of 9a squared. Then you take square root there. You get x minus 5a equal to plus or minus 3a. Okay? Then x will be equal to 5a plus or minus 3a. Therefore, our 2x values are going to be in terms of a. Okay, our answers are not real here because we don't know the value of a. Okay, if a is real, then the answer will be real. Right? So this will be 8. That will be 8a, or x will be equal to 2a. So those are the two answers. Okay. So I have solved the quadratic equation by completing the square. All right? Yes. The previous page. Talk about the last step. Talk about from here to there or here to there. From here to there. Okay. See this. What is the name given to that special trinomial? It's quadratic, yes, but it has got a special name, which I told you yesterday. Perfect square trinomial. What did I say about the perfect square trinomial yesterday? You can tell me that I mentioned the concept of the perfect square trinomial within the gated thing. First and last time, the perfect squares, but in terms of factorization, when you factorize it, what type of factors do you get? Yes. I'll come there. So now tell me, if you factorize the perfect square trinomial, what type of factors do you get? Are they the same? Are they different? The two factors. Huh? They what? I'm saying, will the factors be the same or not? That's my question. The factors will be the same. Always. Okay? So I think the issue is the fact that in the past, your teachers didn't tell you that there's a special type of trinomial which is called a perfect square trinomial. When you factorize it, you always get two binomial factors that are the same. But how do you know that it's a perfect square trinomial? Look at the first term, the third term. They are perfect squares. There is a minus here and there is a plus there. That's a second characteristic. The third characteristic, if you find the square root of the first term, the square root of the third term, if you multiply them, you get a product, right? Which in this case here, it will be x times 5a, which is 5ax. Am I right? Then you multiply it by 2, you must get the middle term. Are you following what I'm saying? So it's like this. 2 times the square root of the first term, which is x, times the square root of the third term, you'll get 5a. These two will give you 10ax, which is what you have here. Okay, don't talk about the negative, we are talking about the value. Yes? We are following the instruction. The instruction says solve by completing the square. Yes. That is if the trinomial can be factorized. But be aware that going forward, not all trinomials can be factorized. In this grade, if you still have the grade 9 and 10 mentality that every trinomial can be factorized, you are going to have problems. Okay, is that clear to everyone? Yes. All right. So let me introduce the quadratic formula now. The quadratic formula. So the new heading, the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula. Okay, can you pay attention quickly? Please, this is very, very important now. This formula that I'm going to introduce is very, very important up to metric and beyond. All right. So we know that the general equation, or which is quadratic, is of the form ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0. All right. Just put your pen down for a while. Now, if we complete the square in that general equation of a quadratic equation, we can come up with a formula, a general formula that we can use to solve any quadratic equation, whether it can be factorized or it may not be factorized. Okay? So, we just have to complete the square here. The first thing, we make the coefficient of x squared what? A 1. So we divide every term by a. So we end up getting x squared plus b over a times x plus c over a. This is equal to 0. Can you pay attention? Listen. Sit straight. You can see my body language that I'm interested in what I'm doing. Right? Body language is very important. Alright. So from here, we take the c over a to the what? The right. So this becomes x squared plus b over ax is equal to minus c over a. Okay? And the next step now is to create a perfect square trinomial on the left-hand side. So we have to find a half of the coefficient of x. So our coefficient of x there is b over a. Now this is interesting. So b over a divided by 2, you will get b over a times 1 over 2. So half of the coefficient of x is going to be b divided by 2a. Okay? So it means I must add b over 2a squared on both sides. Okay? So this becomes x squared plus b over ax plus b over 2a all squared is equal to, now generally we have to start with the square of this. So that will be b over 2a squared minus c over a. Okay? The good thing is, I've created the perfect square trinomial on the left-hand side. So when I factorize it, or rather let me just remove the bracket there. So that will be b over ax plus b squared over 4a squared. This will be equal to b squared over 4a squared minus c over a. Okay? Then, let me factorize this. If I factorize it, I'll get x plus b over 2a all squared. This will be equal to, now I can find the LCD here. What's the LCD on the right hand side? It's what? To be 4a squared. So what that means is I can write this as b squared minus, then I have to multiply this c by 4a, then over 4a squared. You following there? Yeah, your knowledge of algebraic what? Fractions. Yes.
When it is squared, when it's at the top, it's 4a.
Ah, look. What's the LCD? 4a squared. The first fraction, the denominator is the same as the LCD. So nothing changes. The second fraction, the denominator is a. How can I make it equal to the LCD? Multiplied by what? By 4a. Then I have to multiply the numerator by what? 4a. That's how we come up with this 4ac. Okay? Alright. Then, I have to go to the next page. Then let's take square root on both sides. So get x so get x plus b over 2a all squared. We take the square root of that. This will be equal to just need to check that I don't write it incorrectly. So we have got b squared minus 4ac all over 4a squared. Then we take that square root. Okay? But the good thing is you have done sets. That's why we did sets first, because you need your knowledge of sets here. So the left hand side we have x plus b over 2a. This will be equal to, now I can write, please remember I'm supposed to put a plus or minus there. So plus or minus. So that will be over, that will be b squared minus 4ac over the square root of 4a squared. If you remember the first lesson when I introduced sets, remember the first lesson? The first lesson, we had this, the square root of a over b is equal to the square root of a over the square root of b. So we're applying that here. So we get x plus b over 2a is equal to, now plus or minus, that will be the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, so the square root what? Disappears. Then we take this b over 2a to the right hand side. So we end up getting x equal to minus b over 2a plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a.
So the 2a not get a plus or minus.
No. No. No why? Okay, I'm going to explain why. So from there now, the denominator is the same. So we can add or subtract the what? Numerator. So you come to minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And this formula is the famous quadratic formula, which you have to know going forward. Okay? And it's also going to be part of your investigation on Monday. Yes. Well, where? Okay, can you try to speak up and tell me what's your issue? What about the numerator? Okay, are you talking about removing the square root sign to the numerator? You can't, because the numerator is not a perfect square. B squared minus 4ac is not a perfect square. But 4a squared is a perfect square. Huh? Alright. Huh? Right, just to remind you, pay attention. The derivation I have done here is not examinable. Okay? But because of the nature of this class, I didn't want to just say, learners, the quadratic formula is this, without you knowing where it comes from. Now you know that it comes from completing the what? The square of what? The general equation of a quadratic equation. So this formula, you can solve any quadratic equation. Whether the quadratic equation can be factorized or not, this formula here can help you to solve any quadratic equation going forward. Yes. Okay, so just copy that down quickly.
Oh, so will the 2a not get a plus and minus? On the next page.
Okay, that's very interesting. I'm going to explain that. Hey, you know what? You are going to be the first class that I will share this with you. How many of you have ever had? Okay, remember I told you about knowing how to use a computer. Those who do IT probably you might know or you might not know. How many of you have ever heard of what's called Chat GPT? Have you ever had? Have you ever used it? Huh? You used it. Okay, it's quite interesting. If you don't know, I can't tell you. Find out on your own. Okay. Okay. It's more like it's an application, but it uses artificial intelligence. So it doesn't need any human assistance, but we just use text. You know, if you wanna search for something, you go on Google and then you type whatever you want, then you get the information. Now with ChatGPT, you have like a conversation with the chatbot, and it will be responding as you chat. It's very interesting. You know what I did yesterday? I was just having a chat with. Then I said, "Can you create a survey for me?" And then it did everything for me. It's very interesting. And what it means is if you want, for example, if you want to write an essay, if you go to ChatGPT can just write the essay, do an essay for you. But don't do that because you have to be creative.
Is it research?
You have to be creative. But it's quite interesting. It's very interesting. It's very, very interesting. Okay, it's the minus of the formula. So if B is negative, like in this case, B is negative, it means we have minus 7 plus or minus the square root of minus 7 squared minus 4 times 2 times C, which is what? 6. This is all over 2 times 2. Okay? So here we end up getting 7 plus or minus the square root of 49 minus 48. Okay? This is all over 4. You following?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yes.
Then from here you get 1 in the square root, so you get x equal to 7 plus or minus 1 over 4. Okay? So we end up getting x equal to 7 plus 1, that's 8 over 2, we get 2. The other value, 7 minus 1, gives us 6, 6 over 4, we get 3 over 2. So I've used the quadratic formula to get the same solutions.
So,
Yes.
it's the same formula. You have to write
You just have to know this formula here. Whenever you see a quadratic equation, you can use this formula for any quadratic equation. Okay, now these two values, pay attention, x equal to 2 and x equal to 3 over 2, they are called roots. Okay, they are called roots of a quadratic equation. They are also called solutions of a quadratic equation. They are also called zeros of a quadratic equation. When you are dealing with a quadratic function, we call them the x-intercepts. Okay? Remember last year we did the quadratic function, the parabola. They are also called the x-intercepts when you deal with a parabolic graph. Okay, we'll do that, by the way, in this grade. Okay? Now, these two roots are real roots. Remember, you did real numbers, right? Your real numbers, they are also rational. Okay? Because 2 is a rational number, it's an integer. 3 over 2 is a common fraction, it's a rational number. So, they are real roots, they are also rational roots. Right? Sometimes you can have a number which is not a perfect square inside the square root. In that case, you get what are called irrational roots. You get a non-perfect square. Right. By the way, this expression here, b squared minus 4ac, it has got a special name, but I will deal with that later towards the end of the topic. It's called the discriminant. Okay? So I'll talk about nature of roots in more detail. Okay, towards the end of the topic. That expression b squared minus 4ac is called the discriminant. And it is used to determine the nature of the roots of a quadratic equation. Whether the roots are going to be real, are going to be rational, they are going to be irrational, and so on. Sometimes you can have non-real roots. Okay? So I can give you homework now. Yeah. I can give you homework. Okay, but I'm not going to give you homework. You go and digest this. So tomorrow I'm going to start the different ways of solving or the different types of equations that involve quadratics. So I'll start with the fractions one. Okay. But I can give you one question. Eh? All right, your homework. I've changed my mind. There's nothing wrong with changing one's mind. Can you please go and solve this? Copy it down. Yes, solve that. Go and solve that. Relax.